This is sent by a physician in India. And this wasn't actually his patient originally, but he ended up seeing the patient on a second visit. 60-year-old man comes in with 1 hour of mid-sternal chest pain. He went to another emergency department. History of hypertension, maybe a couple other risk factors. Here's the initial 12 lead. Take a look at that. What do you think of this? Maybe there's just a very tiny ST segment abnormality. The computer is going to call this non-significant or not non-specific ST segment change. All right. And what is your interpretation of this? Hopefully, by this point in the course, most everybody is looking at V2 and V3, especially lead V2, and saying, you know what? I think I could take that QRS and fit the entire darn thing into V2. What does that mean? It's not right. It's either hyper K or it's early ischemia until proven otherwise. There's no ST elevation. You might not be able to activate the cath lab right now, but what are you going to do? You're going to get serial EKGs. V3, I think it's getting close. We can almost put that QRS inside, but definitely V2 is really, really concerning. Well, unfortunately, the computer called this non-specific, but I would call this that hyperacute T wave, the second type of hyperacute T wave that we're talking about today. Earlier today, we talked about when the QRS complex, the initial part of the T wave is very straight. Now what we're going to talk about is the large T wave. All right. People have tried to define how tall does the hyperacute T wave need to be? How out of proportion does this hyperacute T wave need to be? I have a very, very simple definition. For me, if the T wave is so large that I can fit the entire QRS inside the T wave, to me, that's hyperacute T wave. And if the history is not consistent with hyperkalemia, to me, that's early cardiac ischemia. I'm getting my repeat EKGs. That's how I define this type of hyperacute T wave. Again, just for comparison, what we have on the right is this patient. You can see how big those T waves are in relation to the QRS. On the left, that's kind of a normal T to QRS proportion. Normally, the QRS is clearly bigger than the T wave. In this case, the T waves are larger than the QRS, and that's not normal, okay? Well, anyway, what happened with this patient was the patient was just diagnosed as non-specific junk. The provider went along with the EKG machine and discharged the patient. Told him, again, your machine's not going to reliably diagnose this, and so you can't rely on the computer. You cannot trust the computer with this. I've never, by the way, seen an EKG computer ever call something hyperacute T waves, right? Anyway, the patient was discharged. The pain persisted, so he ended up returning to another emergency department. That's where Dr. Manimaran works, and he saw the patient about an hour later, and upon arrival, unfortunately, the patient collapsed in cardiac arrest and could not be resuscitated, and that's when Dr. Manimaran found or was able to access the original EKG and discovered that those hyperacute T waves had not been obtained. So in this last case, I just want to go through the hyperacute T waves once again. As I mentioned at the very beginning of this course, I talked about hyperacute T waves that are defined by very straight initial part of the T wave. When the initial part of the T wave is very straight, as opposed to just a nice concave upwards, I'm not drawing that too well. Nice concave upwards, that's a nice normal T wave. But when the initial part becomes very straight, you worry about that. That's the type 1 hyperacute T wave we talked about at the beginning of this morning. Now we're going to talk about type 2 hyperacute T wave. And that, to me, is when the T wave is so large, you can take the entire QRS and fit it inside. If you ever see that, you've got to worry about early cardiac ischemia. Let's do some more cases. This is from Tasmania. 88-year-old who came in with upper abdominal pain, but without significant tenderness. We get a 12 lead. Here's the original 12 lead ECG. And what do you notice? There's really no clear-cut ST segment elevation, maybe a little bit of depression, but in those mid-precordial leads, you've got a T wave, which is so large, you can fit the entire QRS inside it. That T wave just kind of gestalt-wise looks a little bit too big. But definitely V3, that's clearly a disproportionate size T wave. Again, you can clearly fit that inside that T wave. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to repeat the 12-lead ECG. And on the repeat, this is a PVC, so don't worry about that. But on the repeat, you can see that the T wave disproportion is getting even more profound. And now also in V2, I think I can fit that inside. There's still no clear-cut ST segment elevation that buys this patient a clear path to the cath lab. Your cardiologist might take the patient, but I think a lot of cardiologists would push back also. Again, you can clearly see the disproportion out there. Actually, in V, let me go back for a second. In V4, you're almost getting that disproportion up there also. All right. And so what ends up happening, they end up trying to activate the cath lab. Cardiology pushes back and says no. So then a little while later, they get a third EKG. And now you're starting to lose your R waves. In other words, you're developing Q waves, V1, V2, V3. There's also a little bit of ST segment elevation. So at this point, they're finally able to get the patient to the cath lab, but not until after the patient has already lost their R waves, developed Q waves, and the patient had an occluded LAD. Fortunately, ended up doing okay. All right. Here's a case from Kentucky, 71-year-old, chest pressure, diaphoresis. There's a bad word, diaphoresis. And on this case, what do you see? Well, number one, hopefully you're noticing that there's a flip T wave in AVL. I don't know if it's new or old, but it's worth rechecking. And then the other thing that this physician is worried about, take a look at the disproportion between the QRS complexes and the T waves. I can definitely fit that inside the T wave, definitely fit that inside the T wave. So there is some definite badness going on in the inferior leads. There's no ST elevation yet, but we're worried about those inferior leads. There's a little bit of depression out here, which is kind of non-diagnostic. Flip T wave in V2, which maybe that's early reciprocal abnormality from the inferior leads. Anyway, this physician was able to activate the cath lab, and unbelievably, his cardiologist actually took the patient just with his report of these hyperacute T waves. To be honest with you, in my hospital, if I tried to send that patient to the cath lab, I don't think my cardiologist would take the patient because there's no ST segment elevation. But this physician was able to, and sure enough, diagnosed 100% right coronary artery occlusion. It's a fantastic diagnosis because he's making the diagnosis of the occlusion even before the STs have started to rise. Fantastic. Here's a case from Ohio, 77-year-old with exertional chest pain and diaphoresis, radiation to the jaw, a couple cardiac risk factors. Here's the 12-lead EKG. What do you notice on this? There's no ST elevation anywhere, but V2 looks like I can fit that inside. So I'm definitely worried about that. Well, they tried contacting the cath team. Cardiology said no, because I don't see ST elevation in contiguous leads. I would probably get the same pushback at my hospital. They declined the cath. So what are you going to do? Well, easy. You're going to get repeat EKGs. You're going to stay on top of the patient, give them aspirin. If you're really worried, you can give them some heparin, give them your clopidogrel or ticagrelor, or whatever your hospital protocol is. But you stay on top of the patient, get serial EKGs. And Todd ended up getting a repeat EKG just 20 minutes later. Here's the repeat 12-lead 20 minutes later. Now you can see that some of the QRS complexes and Ts are changing, but now it appears that there's more concerning ST segment elevation and straightening of the ST segment in V2. And you've also lost your R wave in V1. So he contacted cardiology back and said, well, you take the patient now. And they ended up taking the patient, and the patient had 100% LAD occlusion. First thing that you saw was that disproportion between the T and the QRS complex. Here's another case. A computer called this completely normal. And what you notice up here is V2, V3 once again. I think I can probably fit that inside the T wave and getting pretty close with V3 also. But there's no clear ST segment elevation. So what are you going to do if cardiology is not going to take them? You're going to just get some serial EKGs. So 13 minutes later, he gets another EKG, and we're getting a little bit more disproportion here. We get another EKG a short time later, another 12 minutes later, and now even more disproportion. But in V3, you're also getting, take a look, ST segment depression shooting up into what looks like kind of a big, tall, symmetric T wave. It's kind of de-wintery, if that's a word, maybe out in there in V4 also. There's ST depression shooting into a big, tall, symmetric T wave. And so based on that evolving de-winter T wave, patient goes to cath and had 100% LAD blockage. Here's one from one of my colleagues, 71-year-old with chest pain. Take a look at this and tell me what, or think in your mind at least, what lead would you worry about here? Anything? Well, hopefully people are saying V4. Take a look. You've got that disproportion. That's what Doug was worried about in this case. So he repeated the 12 lead. The patient was still looking bad. He repeated the 12 lead. He didn't wait long for the repeat 12 lead. Now take a look. Notice there's no ST segment elevation, right? You just have that disproportion in T wave. Well, Doug ended up repeating the 12 lead just about 5-10 minutes later. And now, boom, there's your ST segment elevation in both V4, V5, and a little bit in V6. So the patient goes to the cath lab. Remember what we said at the beginning of this morning. What we said, one of the things I learned from cardiology was that when a patient has an acute coronary occlusion, the first thing that happens is not ST elevation. The first thing that happens is the T wave starts to change. The T wave starts getting a little bit taller and oftentimes more straight, maybe more broad. And then a little bit later, then the STs start to rise. And that's exactly what you're witnessing right here. Here's a case, I believe this was sent from Costa Rica, 45-year-old man with chest pain. And what do you notice up here? Flip T wave and AVL. We don't have an old one, but we'll get another one if necessary. And in your inferior leads, lead 2, that looks okay. Lead 3 and lead AVF, it kind of looks like the T wave is bigger than that QRS complex. AVF almost, right? But we've got some concerns there. So what Dr. Mattu did was he got a repeat EKG 30 minutes later, and let's see if you can identify the subtle change on the repeat EKG. Well, maybe not so subtle, right? So AVL is looking with like a classic reciprocal change, and you've got your massive inferior wall STEMI, and you predicted it based on the flip T wave and AVL, which we'll assume is probably new, and also the disproportion in the inferior leads between the QRS complex and the T wave. How about this one? 57-year-old man, what leads or lead has you worried here? Well, there's a flip T wave and AVL. We don't know if that's new or old, but even more concerning, take a look at V4. Big time disproportion, and it's almost disproportionate V5 also. So we're worried about those anterior leads based on that. Repeat EKG shows a big anterior STEMI about 90 minutes later. And the first thing that you saw was just the flip T wave QRS disproportion in lead V4, all right? Here's yet another case. I hope you're getting bored of this. I want you to get so bored of this that when this patient shows up in your emergency department, and he or she will, you'll look at it and say, that's an early STEMI. Come on, give me something more challenging. That's what I want you to get to. Here's another case. This person already has what appears to be some ST elevation in V1, V2, maybe in lead 1 and AVL, maybe in V2 also. But there's some very nice disproportion in some of these leads. And no surprise, this patient turned into a big anterior wall STEMI a little while later. 100% LAD blockage. All right, just a couple more cases and then we'll be done. Take a look at this and tell me what case has, what lead has you worried. Probably a couple of leads here as well. AVF. And what else? Lead 3. So we're going to worry about the inferior leads. And I see AVL has a flip T wave. So the badness seems to be in the inferior leads. And when we follow this up 20 minutes later, there's your big inferior wall STEMI, which you kind of predicted based on the hyperacute T waves. All right. And again, when do you get the repeat EKG? At some point in the next hour. That's my usual mantra. And then last case here, this was sent to me by a physician in family medicine, 29-year-old guy who normally rides his bike quite a bit. He came into the office saying that in recent days, he's been having some exertional chest pain riding his bike at much shorter distances than normal. And he was still having a little bit of this chest pain in the office. Here's the EKG that was obtained. And there's clear-cut disproportion, maybe a little hyperacute there as well, but definitely V3. The computer read this as non-specific. The physician ended up going with the computer interpretation and unfortunately discharged the patient, and the patient ended up having a sudden cardiac arrest. Dr. Vance, who provided this EKG to me, was very kind, and he said, please share this case with everybody. I don't care if you use my name, but I want everybody to know about this hyperacute T wave finding so they never miss a case like this. And he ended up, he's retired since his case, but he was very gracious and wanted me to use his case in teaching it to as many people as possible. Please be on the lookout for these hyperacute T waves. When you see these hyperacute T waves, either T waves that are too straight or T waves that are too large compared to the QRS, what do? You just get a repeat EKG in a little while. And remember that hyperacute T wave changes will precede the ST segment elevation. And if you start looking for those, you're really going to start nailing some of your diagnoses and picking up STEMIs before the STE actually ends up happening.